The gender of nakshatras, the masculine nakshatras. Masculine nakshatras are energetic fields that, when rising on the ascendant, imbue the native with a psychological orientation rooted in initiation, protection, and assertion. These nakshatras, such as Ashwini, Punarvasu, Pushya, Hasta, Anuradha, Shravana, Uttara Bhadrapada, confer an internalized masculine script, regardless of biological sex. The psyche feels aligned with masculine archetypes, taking charge, defending territory, offering, or providing structure to emotional chaos. When the cusp of the ascendant falls in one of these nakshatras, the person's inner gender identity leans toward action, control, and decision-making. These natives naturally assume leadership or directive roles in relationships, even if passively expressed. It's not about domination, but rather an unconscious alignment with yang-type energy, directive, goal-focused, and duty-bound. This inner psychological orientation influences their seventh house attraction patterns. Because the seventh house mirrors the other, these individuals often draw partners who embody receptive, emotional, or intuitive archetypes, essentially feminine psychological energies. Even in same-gender relationships, the attraction plays out through energy polarity, not anatomy. The masculine nakshatra ascendant unconsciously seeks relational balance through someone who allows emotional flow, nurtures, or reflects rather than directs. Now consider planets placed in the seventh house, especially if they sit in a nakshatra of a contrasting gender. A masculine ascendant with, say, Venus or Moon in a feminine nakshatra like Bharani or Revati in the seventh may show deep emotional need for affection, comfort, or sensual bonding. The native may play the role of protector or initiator in the relationship while deeply yearning for emotional receptivity in return. The nakshatra of the planet shapes what kind of feminine the masculine is seeking. A playful lover, Purva Falguni, a nurturing partner, Rohini, or a spiritual muse, Revati. Conversely, if a masculine nakshatra planet sits in the seventh house, like Mars in Ashwini or Jupiter in Pushya, it creates a dual masculine dynamic, possibly indicating competition, ego clashes, or a partner who mirrors the native's need for control or leadership. In such cases, the relational field is a constant dance of who leads, unless mutual evolution brings balance. In some charts, this placement also leads to partners who embody masculine virtues externally, but are internally seeking direction or healing. The ascendant in a masculine nakshatra tends to push the psyche toward personal sovereignty. There's an inner need to define life on one's terms. This drive can make the individual more self-reliant, but also more guarded emotionally. So when planets like Moon, Venus, or even Mercury fall into the seventh house, the inner masculine begins to crave softness, recognition, or someone who provides a gentle counterbalance to their sense of burden. Interestingly, in long-term partnerships, these masculine nakshatra-led individuals may evolve to embrace a more balanced emotional palette, especially if transits or dashas activate feminine nakshatra influences. The same Anuradha native who starts relationships like a strategist or protector may later become a counselor or caretaker in later phases of life, especially under the influence of Moon or Venus cycles. Masculine nakshatras also bestow resilience in relationships. These individuals often weather emotional storms without crumbling. They may not be naturally expressive, but they anchor partnerships through consistency, logic, and presence. Even in estrangement or silence, they remain committed at a soul level, unless betrayal touches the core wound of masculine loyalty, then withdrawal is often permanent. Overall, the gender of nakshatras does not describe sexual orientation or gender identity in modern terms, but operates more like psychic charge and polarity. A chart dominated by masculine nakshatras, especially at key points like the ascendant, seventh house, moon, or Atmakaraka, shapes the narrative of identity as the protector, the guide, or the doer. Understanding this not only refines relationship predictions, but reveals the deeper script the soul is writing through its interpersonal dynamics. The gender of nakshatras, the feminine nakshatras. Feminine nakshatras form the psychic ground for relational intelligence, receptivity, and emotional attunement. When the ascendant falls in a feminine nakshatra, such as Bharani, Kritika, Rohini, Ardra, Ashlesha, Magha, Purva Falguni, Uttara Falguni, Chitra, Swati, Vishaka, Jyeshta, Purva Ashada, Uttara Ashada, Dhanishta, or Revati, the individual's inner orientation leans toward empathy, sensuality, nurturing, or artistic intelligence. These natives resonate with the yin archetype, drawn to beauty, emotional resonance, the power of presence, and the sacred feminine. This does not imply passivity. It's about how energy is processed. The feminine nakshatra ascendant experiences life through feeling, connection, rhythm, and atmosphere, rather than through control or logic. These natives often excel in interpreting emotional subtext, intuiting others' needs, and offering magnetic charm or softness that draws others in. Their internal compass is relational, even when outwardly independent. Because the seventh house mirrors their psychological polarity, individuals with a feminine nakshatra ascendant are magnetized to masculine energy, whether it appears as strength, direction, or certainty. The psyche often seeks external structures that can hold its internal fluidity. These natives may attract goal-driven, assertive, or even dominant partners, not out of submission, but as a way to co-regulate their own emotional fields. When a planet sits in the seventh house, the dynamic becomes richer. Imagine Moon in Bharani rising and Mars in Ashwini occupying the seventh. Here, the native's core identity is rooted in deep sensuality and emotional intensity, while the partner archetype embodies drive, courage, and tactical leadership. This pairing offers electric chemistry, but also requires balancing emotional depth with impulsive action. Feminine ascendants seek to be seen and emotionally held, not just physically pursued. If the planet in the seventh also sits in a feminine nakshatra, like Venus in Rohini or Mercury in Chitra, the mirror becomes an extension of the self. These natives often form deeply emotional or artistic bonds with others who reflect their emotional landscape back to them. In such pairings, the relationship becomes a shared emotional garden, each partner cultivating and nurturing the other's creative and emotional growth. Feminine nakshatras on the ascendant also point toward a naturally fluid identity, which may evolve through life based on relationships, creative exploration, or spiritual calling. These natives often experience major shifts in self-perception triggered by relational events, betrayals, unions, losses, that crack open new levels of inner wisdom. Their partnerships are rarely shallow. Even short ones leave deep impressions. In contrast, when a masculine nakshatra planet sits in the seventh, the individual may encounter assertive or goal-oriented partners, often mirroring their own unexpressed ambitions. For example, Magha ascendant, feminine, with Jupiter in Ashwini in the seventh, may suggest a relational attraction to teachers, healers, or entrepreneurs, people who move fast, take initiative, and embody confidence. These natives often find themselves oscillating between surrender and autonomy, between being emotionally available and emotionally sovereign. Another subtle dynamic is how the emotional power of feminine nakshatras shapes identity from within. These individuals often don't declare who they are. They become it through resonance, care, and intimate contact. Identity is built from emotional memory, from mirroring others, and from the aesthetics of lived experience. Their partnerships thrive on connection and decay when routine or coldness sets in. Feminine nakshatra ascendants are also sensitive to the emotional currents of their environment. A Chitra or Swati ascendant may thrive in aesthetically refined, peaceful environments, while an Ashlesha or Ardra ascendant may need intense emotional expression, even chaos, to feel fully alive. The partnership must meet not only intellectual needs, but vibrational ones. These natives are rarely satisfied by structure alone. They need soulful, sensual, or spiritual rapport. Ultimately, the feminine nakshatra orientation is not about submission or softness, but about tuning into life through the heart, body, and intuition. When planets like Venus, Moon, or Ketu fall in the seventh, especially in masculine nakshatras, the native may find emotional balance through grounding forces. But when those same planets fall in other feminine nakshatras, the partnership can become a cocoon of intimacy, creativity, and emotional evolution. These charts often speak of sacred unions, where relationship is a path to awakening and love is the teacher. This understanding deepens the art of synastry, compatibility, and psychological mapping in astrology. By analyzing which nakshatras dominate the ascendant and seventh house axis, we're not just identifying external events or types of partners. We're decoding the inner balance of masculine and feminine energies, how the self is shaped, and what kind of mirror the soul needs in love to feel whole. The gender of Nakshatras, the Neuter Nakshatras. Neuter Nakshatras form a unique psychic axis in Vedic astrology. Neither overtly masculine nor fully feminine, they operate in a zone of neutrality, detachment, and observation. When the ascendant falls in one of the Neuter Nakshatras, Mrigashira, Mula, or Shatabisha, the person's psychological gender orientation becomes complex, often combining analytical intelligence with emotional ambiguity. These natives tend to experience identity through intellect, inquiry, and distance, rather than emotional bonding or assertive domination. What makes the Neuter Nakshatras distinct is their willingness to observe before identifying. The native isn't compelled to act, as in masculine nakshatras, or merge emotionally, as in feminine ones. Instead, they often withdraw, assess, and interact from a place of deep curiosity or impersonal detachment. This internal orientation produces a psyche that is internally self-reliant, intellectually curious, and emotionally non-dependent, though not devoid of depth. When the ascendant lies in a Neuter nakshatra, the self-concept is usually layered. The person may feel inwardly androgynous, not in gender identity necessarily, but in how they handle life. There's often a subtle avoidance of polarities, not chasing or clinging, but examining from the sidelines. This can produce a unique type of emotional intelligence that is calm under pressure, but distant in intimacy, making it difficult for others to read them or feel emotionally close. In relationship dynamics, the seventh house becomes a compensatory zone of polarity. Neuter ascendant natives may attract highly emotional or assertive partners, those with strong feminine or masculine nakshatra signatures. This often plays out like a projective mirror, where the partner expresses the very emotionality, desire, or passion the native has disidentified with. For example, a Mrigashira ascendant might be attracted to someone with Rohini or Magha placements, who embody romance, intensity, or flair, while the native observes with restrained fascination. When planets sit in the seventh house, especially in polarized nakshatras, the contrast becomes sharper. Imagine Mula ascendant with Venus in Purva Falguni in the seventh. The native may feel innately detached from relational needs, but magnetized to a partner full of passion, beauty, and sensual depth. The inner self remains the philosopher, the truth seeker, while love becomes the arena of karmic engagement. These pairings demand psychic integration, or they risk becoming disjointed, one person wanting intimacy, the other analyzing it. If the seventh house planet is also in a Neuter nakshatra, say Shatabisha, relationships take on a non-traditional, spiritual, or experimental tone. Here, partnership may not be about possession or bonding, but about shared evolution, detachment, or humanitarian goals. It can be a union built on shared knowledge, research, or collective service, rather than emotional codependence or romantic theatrics. Another signature of Neuter nakshatra ascendants is their delayed relational ripening. Many of these individuals take longer to commit, not because they fear intimacy, but because they analyze it to exhaustion. They often require a partner who respects their mental space, intellectual boundaries, and subtle rhythms. Emotional volatility or overt control usually repels them. They prefer connection through discourse, philosophy, or shared purpose. Interestingly, the inner gender signature of these natives tends toward the archetype of the seeker, the scientist, or the spiritual sannyasi. They're often disinterested in conventional relational roles, provider, nurturer, seductress, etc., and may take years before defining what love or relationship even means to them. But when they do commit, it's often with a clear purpose, and often as a gateway to deeper truths or mystical service. Relationally, this creates an asymmetric attraction. They draw in partners who seek depth, who feel there's more under the surface. These partners may be emotionally intense or even chaotic, drawn to the Neuter ascendant's calm and contained demeanor. However, unless consciously managed, this can result in projection imbalance, where one partner plays the role of the feeler, while the other remains the observer, creating emotional dissonance. But the higher octave of this dynamic is transformative. These charts often speak of karma-neutralizing unions, relationships that transcend egoic roles and become vessels of service, truth, or knowledge transmission. A Shatabisha or Mula native in union with someone from a passionate nakshatra can become the calm within the storm, the healer of wounds, or the quiet guide through emotional complexity. In essence, neuter nakshatras gift the native with a non-binary psychological polarity, freeing them from strict masculine-feminine roles and allowing them to hold space for both. But their challenge is integration, not escaping intimacy, but redefining it on evolved terms. Whether it's through a spiritual teacher, a transformative partner, or a shared cause, their relational journey is one of subtle alchemy, where identity becomes less about gendered patterns and more about transcending them for the sake of clarity, evolution, and deep witnessing.